Beijing has congratulated US President Joe Biden on his inauguration and called for renewed cooperation between the two nations. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson said with cooperation from both sides, the better angles in China-US relations will beat the evil forces. But some key issues still remain. Now, hours before he left office, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said China's actions towards the Uyghur Muslim minority accounted to genocide. During his confirmation hearing, the incoming Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, agreed with Pompeo and said President Trump's tougher approach on China was right. And at the press conference today, Beijing said the sanctions it imposed on former Trump officials, including Mr. Pompeo, just minutes after Biden was sworn in, were completely legitimate and necessary. Well, I'm joined now by Ray Zhong, a researcher and analyst based in DC who specializes in US-China relations. Ray, thanks very much for joining us. Now, on the surface, there are all smiles from China and messages of congratulations, but no doubt at the top of their mind today is that outgoing message from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that the treatment of Uyghurs amounts to genocide.
Yes, and in addition to that, Pompeo's State Department also elevated the level of importance of diplomatic communications between the United States and Taiwan, which is something that always sets off a flag in Beijing. So this effectively puts a timer on the Biden administration to handle China's reaction to it. Retaliation from China can happen very quickly, as we've seen with the sanctions, but it can also take medium and longer term tit for tat policy. So it can impact trade, it can impact the ease of exchanges between China and the US, or other types of policy areas that China's choosing.
So, while China talks about working towards common goals like dealing with climate change and COVID, ultimately, though, it does not want the US or any other state to meddle in what it calls its internal affairs. And whether that's Uyghurs or Hong Kong, they want the United States to stay out.
Yes, over the last 4 years, we've seen this tightening within China of its definition of security. So this can include conventional definitions of national security, but also political security. So the political security of Xi Jinping and the CCP, and also of issues that China considers sovereign. And so on Hong Kong, we've seen the imposition of the national security law. And internationally, this is something that China has signaled that it will not budge on easily.
Trump, though, had a point on certain issues. I mean, when he put pressure on the WHO because of rhetoric it had used towards China, there was a point in that, wasn't there? Because, I mean, we even look at the investigative team that's gone to Wuhan now, and they're sitting around in a hotel, not able to get access to the site.
Well, China certainly has had its transparency issues in the timing of how it informed both its citizens and the international community of COVID. Having said that, Trump, on his way out of the White House, used the term China virus. His team has also promoted an unproven lab leak theory. And so China within the pandemic has both been a producer of a not ideal information environment, but it's also been kind of the target. And so what Biden sets to inherit is a very sort of belligerent environment in terms of health cooperation and in terms of the future of US-China competition. But that was going to be the case no matter who was in the White House. China tends to not budge on what policy priorities that it deems important, regardless of the results of US presidential races.
Ray Zhong, good to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us.